What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanjit back at it with another video. We're talking about this game, man. What a terrible game. There's literally no excuses for how bad the Las Vegas Raiders were against the Carolina Panthers. Honestly, this game was pretty bad from the beginning all the way towards the end. The Panthers started the game, went right downfield, and scored a touchdown. Second drive, they got the ball right downfield, scored another touchdown. They were up 21-7 going into halftime. And to me, you can't have that if you're the Las Vegas Raiders. I know a lot of people are upset with this game, and a lot of people should absolutely be upset, as am I. Luke Getsy's play calling was really, really bad. Gardner Minshew wasn't much better. And at this point, I don't even know what the Raiders do. Do you just go forward and do you just make that change and say, all right, Aiden O'Connell's our quarterback going forward? Do you actually do that, right? And then, you can't fire coaching staff. It's way too early on in the season. But the fact that you can't beat a Carolina Panthers team that essentially got their ass kicked coming into this week, 2 games, right, back-to-back, they got blown out. It's one thing if the Panthers scored 36 points on you, right? That's one thing. But the fact that the Raiders had 7 points going up until, late, in the fourth quarter, essentially, they had only scored 7 points in the first 3 quarters. That too, right? The other, essential 15 points that the Raiders scored in the fourth quarter, that was basically garbage time points, right? The Panthers knew they had already won the game. When the Raiders went downfield and scored at the end of the game, the first touchdown was Gardner Minshew. I think we still had a chance up until Minshew threw that interception, and then the Panthers took that and essentially were able to kick a field goal. And then Aiden O'Connell came in, right? And he did drive right downfield. He went 9 of 12, 82 yards, scored a touchdown. But the Panthers were basically, they weren't trying essentially, and it's unfortunate, right? It's just really, really unfortunate. The Raiders, what we saw against the Baltimore Ravens in the second half, I really felt that was the Raiders, right? I really felt that team we saw is what the Raiders will be this season. And the thing is the Raiders can be that team, right? But they're just not consistent. Across the board, they can't run the football. And, Antonio Pierce came into this, after that Ravens game, he talked about it multiple times this week. Pierce said that we're going to run the football. And we're going to go with this heavy power concept because that's what fits Zamir White. Zamir White had 10 carries for 34 yards. He was terrible today. Right? He had 1 carry that went for, I think, like 10 yards. He had a second one that went for like 6 or 7 yards. And then his other 8 carries went for like 15 yards. To me, if the Raiders can't run the football with Zamir White, maybe it's time you make a change. Maybe it's time that you say, hey, maybe Zamir White's just not a good running back. I personally didn't feel like the pass protection was that much of an issue today. I felt like in pass pro, our offense line did a pretty good job, but guys just weren't open. Gardner Minshew wasn't delivering the pass when he needed to, and at the end of the day, you can't have that. And it's unfortunate at this point, right? And then you can take it a step further, and you can talk about all the bad decisions by Antonio Pierce. There are so many moments in this game where it just didn't make sense. So Antonio Pierce had a moment where we essentially went for it. I think it was the second drive that the Raiders had the football. The Raiders essentially went all the way downfield, and it may have been the third drive. It was the drive after we had scored that first touchdown that the Raiders scored. We drove all the way downfield, and it was 3rd and 7, and they decided to run the football for whatever reason on 3rd and 7. And then on like 4th and 4, they went for it again. And on 4th and 4, they ended up throwing an incompletion. So the Raiders came away with no points on that game. And then even more than that, before halftime, right, the Raiders – to me, they tried getting the ball to Devante Adams a couple times. He dropped the pass, and that drop essentially, made the Raiders try a 57-yard field goal. That was a miss, right? So to me, there are just so many moments across this game where the Raiders made a mistake. And there's another thing that Antonio Pierce did in this game that didn't make sense to me. It was just bad across the board, man. It's really, really, really embarrassing as a Las Vegas Raider diehard fan. To have the success we had last week and then to come into this game and put up those type of numbers, it's just not acceptable. And, I already talked about this as well. I talked about it in the Ravens game. I said, the Raiders had a shot to beat the Ravens, and I talked about why. And I talked about the Panthers game, and I said there's a chance the Panthers beat us. And I talked about why, right? And to me, the big thing was the Carolina Panthers had two really, really good guards. They had a good left tackle that was a first-round pick. The right tackle, I think, was also a first-round pick back in 2017. The Carolina Panthers have a good offensive line, and that kind of neutralized the Raiders' defensive line. And as soon as the Raiders' defensive line got neutralized, our entire defense looked bad. When we weren't generating pressure, we weren't able to get after the quarterback, our entire defense just didn't look good, right? As Chef B says, just bad play by everybody. You know, there's just nothing you can do at this point based off of what we kind of saw out there that makes me feel like, hey, the Raiders have a real shot to win a Super Bowl this year, right? Or have a real shot to make the playoffs. You know, it's one thing if the Raiders were able to score 30 points and then the Panthers score 36 and you lose a football game that's close. But this game was never close. The Carolina Panthers just pretty much beat our ass the entirety of this game. The score was 27-7, I think, going into the fourth quarter. Game was pretty much over at that point. Shout out to Raider Tahu, who is saying that Luke Getsy has got to go. And I agree with you, man. Luke Getsy is such a bad coach. And it's one thing, it's one thing to fire your head coach. It's a different thing to fire offensive coordinator. The thing is if you fire Luke Getsy at this point, what do you do from that point? Do you say, hey, we have this quarterbacks coach that we're going to now make our head coach, right? Our quarterback coach actually spent some time, I think, in 2022 with the 49ers. He was also their quarterbacks coach. Can our quarterback coach step in and call plays? I don't know, right? What about someone else that's on this team? Can someone else call plays? And, it's just one of those things where we already knew coming into this season that Luke Getsy was not a good coach. And you know what's funny? And it's not even funny. But it's just crazy to kind of think this. Coming into the season, all offseason, we talked about our offensive line. And, anytime I went live, I talked about it. In some of my videos, I talked about it and I'd read you guys' comments. And we talked about this offensive line and we said, hey, is this offensive line good or not? And I used to always say, hey, I need them to prove it. And some people are like, hey, there's a chance they're a top 10 offensive line. There's a chance Andre James is like a top 7 center. And I feel like that's not even remotely close to being true. Also, we talked about how, some people are like, hey, Luke Getsy is going to be a great offensive coordinator. He wasn't the issue. It was always Justin Fields. And it's crazy because the Raiders offense has been terrible. Literally we played 12 quarters of football this year. 11 of those 12 football quarters, right? 11 of those 12 quarters have been really, really bad for the Raiders on the offensive side. One quarter against the Baltimore Ravens was a quarter that we had success. And honestly, Gardner Minshew hurried up the offense against the Ravens. And because of the pace, right, we ran things a little bit different, right? It wasn't structured the way it would be, let's say in the first quarter of a game or a third quarter of a game where your offensive coordinator is calling plays. When you're playing with that fast pace, you're hurrying it up. It's a little bit different, right? The calls are going to be a little bit different. You're going to have the quarterback making those decisions. Against the Ravens, we scored 17 points doing that in the fourth quarter, essentially. And even against the Panthers today, there was a moment we scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. We scored like within 3 or 4 minutes. And that's because Gardner Minshew just hurried it up, right? And to me, that kind of just goes to touch on Luke Getsy. He's a bad coach, right? We've struggled so much on the offensive side in this game. And it just comes back to the fact that, Justin Fields is 3-0. And I'm not saying, he's winning just because he's a great quarterback. Because I've watched his games. That's not necessarily even the truth. But the thing is the Steelers are consistently moving the football downfield. Their offensive coordinator, who's Arthur Smith, he was the head coach of the Falcons last year, he's a good coach, right? He's good at calling plays. He knows how to design good spacing concepts. He knows how to get guys open. And with our coach, he's just unable to do that. And it's just unfortunate, I'm going to get into the super chats today. So if you guys have comments, if you guys have questions, drop a super chat down below. This week's going to be an interesting week because although we did lose to the Panthers, we do got the Cleveland Browns coming up next week. I think the Browns are a pretty bad football team as well. This entire season is going to basically be what we saw over the last 2 weeks. It's going to be a grind the entire season, right? One week we might be great. The next week we're going to suck, right? And it's going to be inconsistent until hopefully down at some point it just clicks. And then hopefully when it does click, the Raiders do end up having success. This week's going to suck, right? Because we ended up losing to a Panthers team where they basically beat the crap out of us, right? YRK World said, we just made Andy Dalton look like prime Tom Brady. it's crazy because we do this to a lot of quarterbacks, right? Andy Dalton's not the only quarterback. Is not the only quarterback, right? That has done this to us now. There's been quarterbacks across the NFL. I remember Nick Foles at one point did this to us. Or was it Nick Foles? May have been another quarterback. Baker Mayfield, right? Came off the street with the Rams, I think like 2 years ago and beat us at the end of the game. Right? There's just so many examples of quarterbacks doing these type of things to us. And I think it was Ryan Fitzpatrick 3 years ago, maybe. There's just so many examples of this where quarterbacks come off the street or, backup quarterbacks come in and start. Last year, Tyson Bagent beat us, right? Where it's just unfortunate, man. Alexander Melchor said, Senji, after 3 games, does this tell you that Luke Getsy was a problem and not Justin Fields? Trap game was real after all. I think it's hard to say. So I don't know if Justin Fields is a good quarterback or not. I really don't know. I think he's kind of just average. But I do know for a fact Luke Getsy's a terrible offensive coordinator. I had said that I have 12 plays of Luke Getsy where this season he's designed bad concepts. I said that on Twitter. I actually did the count. There's actually 8 plays I have saved right now. I can show you guys 8 examples this season where Luke Getsy calls something and guys are confused, right? Luke Getsy does something and guys just don't execute it properly, right? Gardner Minshew threw that interception today. People might not think about it, right? People might just overlook that. But Gardner Minshew thought Devante Adams was going to run a curl route, right? And not an out route, right? It's a difference. Curl is towards the inside, out is towards the outside. And Devante Adams ran a route, which was an out route, and Gardner Minshew threw a curl route, and it led to an interception. Those are little basic communication errors. That's on the offensive coordinator to make sure it's being installed correctly and guys are on the same side. If Luke Getsy has 1,000 calls and people aren't 100% sure, that's on the coordinator for not having it properly installed. There was a play, I think it was like the first drive that the Raiders had the ball against the very first team that we played this year. There was a play where Gardner Minshew wanted to hand the football off to Zamir White, and Zamir White ran it wide, and Gardner Minshew thought he could just hand it to Zamir White, and he couldn't. Right? Gardner Minshew was supposed to pitch the ball to Zamir White, and he didn't pitch it, right? And essentially it was a bad handoff, and Zamir White ended up losing yards. It's the little details. There was a play in preseason when Brock Bowers or Trey Tucker, one of them ran the wrong route, and Aiden O'Connell ended up getting sacked, and essentially those two guys ran into each other. But that was a design play where one of them was supposed to go into the corner. It's the little details that are off with the Las Vegas Raiders, right? And to me, you can say, okay, well, let's blame Gardner Minshew there. Let's blame Brock Bowers here. Let's blame Devante Adams there. And that's true. It's definitely on those individual guys as well. But if there's a lot of guys making a lot of mental mistakes, and at the end of the day, that means there's something wrong with the coaching. And with Luke Getsy, he's already proven while he was with the Bears that there's issues with his style of coaching. It's just not good, right? And there's nothing the Raiders can be able to do at this point. Right, there's a reason why the Raiders did not want Luke Getsy to begin with. There's a reason why when the Raiders interviewed Luke Getsy, they interviewed Chip Kelly, they interviewed Clint Kubiak, they interviewed, Cliff Kingsbury. There's a reason why the Raiders picked Cliff Kingsbury, Chip Kelly. There's a reason why the Raiders picked those two guys, and both of those guys essentially declined our job, and then they had to settle with Luke Getsy. There's a reason why Luke Getsy was the only coach fired on the coaching staff of the Chicago Bears last year. He's just not a good coach at the end of the day, and it's just what it is. It's just disappointing as hell because I think this Raiders team is actually legit this year. I see way too many. I just see way too many different positive things with the Raiders, right? Trey Tucker today had 7 catches for 96 yards. Our defensive line at times can wreck the game, right? Our secondary or our linebackers at times can have success as well. I don't know. It's just what it is, and it's disappointing. I'm disappointed as hell, but I'm going to get into some of your guys' super chats. Big Daddy O said 3rd and 6, and we try to get 20. That's idiotic. I'm not sure exactly which play, but I agree with what you're saying because I just know, man, it's just what it is with us. Adrian Diaz said, I can call plays. You probably can, man. It's really, really, really bad. It's really bad. And, Bills is saying, bring back Gruden as your offensive coordinator. John Gruden was a great play caller, man. He had a great offensive design. And John Gruden was a great play caller, right? He might not have been great when it came to the draft. He might have been average as a head coach in terms of decision making, right? He may have been average. I think Antonio Pierce is also an average decision maker, right? He'll go for it on certain times. He won't go for it at other times, right? Things that just don't make sense. And I know it's a hard thing to do to be a head coach, but that's a part of the job, right? That's why you're the head coach. And it's not like Antonio Pierce is calling plays, so it should be a little bit easier. It's unfortunate, it's really, really, really unfortunate. Margarine says Hondo was saying that the O-line was great. I did not see that. I don't know. It's hard to tell exactly if the offensive line was good or not. Frozen Raider said, I'll buy your lunch tomorrow if you can wholeheartedly tell me a positive on the offensive and D side of the ball today. We lost because we couldn't win in the trenches. There's really not a whole lot of positives you can say within what we saw. Another thing is, you got to watch the actual tape too. If someone's saying, hey, the offensive line was absolutely great today, or the offensive line was absolutely terrible today, it's hard to say that without watching the actual tape. Gardner Minshew was only sacked twice today. I actually thought the pass blocking looked better, right? Because it didn't seem to me that Gardner Minshew was being pressured nonstop. But to be fair, I also think that the Panthers were playing a lot more coverage, right? They're only rushing 3 or 4 guys. And, when you're only rushing 3 or 4 guys, that means you're dropping back in coverage. And then that makes it hard. Right? It makes it very, very hard to get guys open. But I also don't know if our tight end and running backs are chipping on every play, because sometimes, they'll do that where they'll keep a running back or a tight end at chip, which does slow down the production, right? Slows down how many people are actually running routes. But it's crazy because I said, the Panthers offensive line is really, really good. Now, I had said this before in the preview video, right? We just did like 2 days ago. You guys can go watch me hype up the Panthers offensive line. I said this on Twitter, and people crushed me in the comments. People were like, hey, that offensive line sucks. Have you seen what happened to Bryce Young? The thing with offensive line play is your offensive line can be a top 5 offensive line. The same guys could be a bottom 5 offensive line, right? If one quarterback is Tom Brady and the other quarterback is Bryce Young, it's going to be a completely different offensive line, right? Because it comes down on the quarterback getting the ball out quickly, right? If Lamar Jackson's your quarterback, teams are going to slow down when it comes to pass rushing. If you have an offensive line that's bad and a quarterback that can't move, it's going to just be different, right? It's a different game plan. It's a different approach. To me, I felt like, the Panthers weren't really rushing the Raiders. Maybe that's why the pass blocking looked better. But Gardner Minshew didn't really look that good either. He had that one big pass to Trey Tucker. He had a couple other passes as well, but generally speaking, the offense didn't look that good. Now, maybe that's also because of the fact that our run game was kind of crappy again. We had Gardner Minshew had a 10-yard run. Zamir White had a 9-yard run, and then White also had like a 5-yard run, right? So in those 3 runs, the Raiders essentially picked up 25 yards. It's literally half the rushing yards we had today. So I don't know. I don't know how you fix this. The run game's not good. We all know that, right? So what do you do at this point? Shout out to you, Frozen Raider, for the super chat. Always appreciate it. We did get our ass kicked in the trenches. It's going to be, it's unbiased to say this, right? The Raiders defensive line got their ass kicked today. I saw plays where Adam Butler was getting tossed. I saw a play in which Robert Hunt, the right guard, threw Robert Spillane. I think we all saw that, right? The broadcast guy pointed it out. But there are other plays I noticed, right? Because I focus in on the offensive and defensive line on every play. There are other plays where that offensive line was throwing our defensive linemen. There was a play where I don't know if it was Snowden or Robinson was one of those guys. Aikman Kwanu, the left tackle, tossed this guy, right? The Panthers offensive line literally bullied the Raiders. Now, I don't know how hurt Maxx Crosby was, because we had heard he had an ankle injury, and then he also didn't play at the end of the game. So I'm not sure exactly what that was about. Is he really hurt? Is he okay? Like, what's kind of going on? I'm not sure. But our defensive line straight up got their ass kicked. Larry says Joe Philbin is on the staff. Does Philbin call offensive plays? I don't know, right? I think he's a great offensive line coach, and I think Philbin is going to do wonders with Jackson Powers Johnson. And I'm excited to watch the tape to specifically watch Jackson Powers Johnson. He looked good to me out there, but he didn't play the entire game. I was actually told by someone that he was supposed to rotate in either every quarter or every drive, right? But most likely to be every quarter. And he actually didn't rotate in every quarter. He did come in right at the beginning of the second quarter. And I think he played like 2 drives for the Raiders. And then he didn't play again until the fourth quarter. So, I'm not really sure why he didn't play more, but hopefully he gets up to par, and hopefully he starts this upcoming week. I think the Raiders could easily have a lot more success fixing this offensive line. I think the offensive line is really, really, really bad, right? At times, really, really bad. It's really, really bad running the football, especially. And if you can't run the football, you're not gonna have success. I think the one thing we sometimes look at Gardner Minshew and say, hey, this guy should just throw the football like crazy, and he should just be able to take us over the top. But I think it also comes down to the fact that we got to run the football, and we got to make it easier on Gardner Minshew. Like, have we had a 30-yard run this season? Have we had any play where like a wide receiver catches the ball and takes it 30 yards? Last week I saw Justin Jefferson catch I think it was like a 90-yard touchdown or whatever it was. He had a massive touchdown, right? It was essentially a catch and run he had for a touchdown. I saw Malik Neighbors do the same thing this week. The Saints have a wide receiver in Shaheed who's catching these 50, 60, 70-yard touchdowns. Have the Raiders had a guy like that, right, that could actually make plays for the Raiders, right? Do we have a running back that can take it 40, 50 yards, right? Because I don't think Zamir White can do that. And that's, you can blame Tom Telesco partly for that as well. Like, I could have told you guys last year, and I did say it multiple times, Zamir White's not a good running back. Right? He's just not a good running back. He's a good number 2 running back, but he's not a number 1 running back. And he's been awful this year so far. So I don't know how you could fix that at this point either, because there's just no way, you can't, you're not going to go out and get a rookie running back at this point, right? All the running backs that were available have already went to a team. Are there free agents available? I don't know, right? I don't think there is. Now, there are good offensive linemen the Raiders definitely call, right? There's older guys that are available. There's guys that have like injury histories that are technically available, right? Like Phil Haynes, as an example, is available. I think Haynes is probably better than Dylan Parham. He's probably a lot better than Dylan Parham, to be honest, but he's always hurt, so he's a free agent. I think you can potentially put in Jackson Powers Johnson at center, right? I don't know if he's comfortable with the position, but then you'll upgrade the center position, right? And even at left guard, like, is Cody Whitehair really the best option that the Raiders have? Jose says Getsy has got to go. I agree, man. Bench Luke Getsy. Facts. Fire Getsy. It's just unfortunate, right? The entire thing is really, really, really unfortunate. Some people are saying, can't Joe Philbin call the offense? I'm not 100% sure. I really don't know if he can. But, right now, the Raiders can't really make any changes, right? Like, it's really hard because we're just about to enter the 4th game of the season. We are 1-2, but our schedule's not super difficult either. We got the Browns, and I think right after the Browns, I think we have the Steelers as well. Those are winnable games, in my opinion. In fact, I don't think there's a lot of games this season that I would say, hey, those games are not winnable games for the Raiders. I think a lot of these games are, and David's right. It was Nick Foles that threw 6 touchdowns on us. That was years back, but I remember that game because I was excited for the Raiders to potentially beat the Rams for personal reasons, and they got 6 touchdowns thrown on them. It was embarrassing, man. Definitely an embarrassing game. I think we're all tired of this stuff, man. Devastator said tired of this shit. I agree, man. It's just unfortunate, But I will say this, like just to try to be positive in a day where it is not positive. I will say that I think Tom Telesco did draft some good players, and I know drafting players doesn't really matter. Matt LaFleur is one of the best head coaches in the NFL. He's 2-0 with Malik Willis as his quarterback. Malik Willis was written off by the Tennessee Titans. Matt LaFleur brought this guy in. He's now 2-0 with him. But the thing with Matt LaFleur is Matt LaFleur has a great run game, right? He's essentially drawn up. He's installed a great run game. Most people can't even name any offensive lineman on the Packers, right? But the Packers have some great offensive linemen, right? Elkin Jennings is one of the best guards in the NFL. They got some good tackles, right? Jordan Morgan's a pretty good offensive lineman as well. And the thing with the Packers is they have a great play caller. And that play caller knows how to design an offense. He knows how to design a run game. And he knows how to design a legit outside zone, wide zone concept, right? Unlike Luke Getsy, right? Luke Getsy likes to tell people that his scheme is outside and wide zone, but Getsy doesn't know how to install it properly. That guy knows how to install proper offenses. And you look at the Packers, they're 2-0 without their starting quarterback. They're 2-0 with Malik Willis, who was written off by the Tennessee Titans. To take that a step further, Sam Darnold is 3-0, and Sam Darnold's beat the 2-0 Houston Texans. He beat the, I think at that point it was 1-0 San Francisco 49ers. Sam Darnold's having success with the Minnesota Vikings, right? So it just goes to show you that at the end of the day, play calling's where it's at, right? There's nothing more important than your play calling. I'd go on record to say I don't think Patrick Mahomes would be that good without Andy Reid, right? Because I factually do think Andy Reid is one of the top 2 or 3 play callers in the NFL, play designers, the spacing. Guys come into that scheme and system and they grasp how to play NFL offenses. They know what they need to do. I think there's nothing more important than play calling. So to me, I think the one thing that the Raiders are going to have to do as they go into the rest of this season is the offense needs to be executed better, right? Guys need to run their things that they got to ultimately run. And then everything needs to just work better. The flow needs to be better. And then going into next season, Tom Telesco did get some good players, right? I think Jackson Powers-Johnson will be legit. Brock Bowers is very, very good as well. Devante Adams, we're going to have to figure that out, right? Because Devante Adams only has a couple years left, really. And at this point, I think he's slowing down already, to be honest with you guys. I think Devante Adams 3 years ago was so much better than he is at this point. He had a drop last week, which would have probably been a touchdown had he caught it. And he had 2 key drops for the Raiders this week. I'm pretty sure there were separate drives as well, right? One would have essentially given the Raiders a first down and kept the chains moving. And the other one would have made the field goal right before halftime a lot shorter. He dropped the pass and we attempted a 57-yard field goal. Had he caught that pass, we would have been like 7 yards closer. Kim T is saying to go out and draft Cam Ward. I'm not even 100% sure if Cam Ward's that good of a quarterback. I watched his tape from yesterday's game. He definitely looks better, but I don't know if there's a big difference between like Cam Ward and Shadir Sanders. And that too, both guys can be good, but I think you got to have a play caller that's going to be able to get them over the top, right? Play calling's where it's at, in my opinion. The big Val Boski, shout out to you, said O-line, D-line, minus maxx, and offensive coordinator are shit. The refs not calling obvious holds on Carolina hurts too. There is zero fluency to our offense, simply horrible. Facts, man. There's just no, the Detroit Lions. I don't know if you guys saw this. If you didn't, go to Twitter and put it in, or just put in Lions and it'll come up. Ben Johnson drew this badass offensive play today that went for a touchdown. It was basically a hook and ladder where they're running, their wide receiver ran like a in route, right? It was a quick, like 3-yard little in route. He caught the pass. The running back went out for a route, but the running back went like between the guard and tackle, right? He went like right through the B gap. And he kind of came out towards the right. The wide receiver caught it and he pitched it to the running back, and the running back got it. And it was just well executed, and they scored a really, really nice touchdown. That was the first time we had seen that played by the Detroit Lions or by anybody in the NFL, right? I don't think I've ever seen that type of concept. A couple of weeks ago, there was a college team that ran a hook and ladder to the offensive tackle. They ran a quick pass towards the left, right, to their wide receiver. Their left tackle ran around and he just pitched it right to the left tackle. But it's just creative concepts. Mike McDaniel revolutionized another thing this year, right? He'll have his tight end going into motion, and they'll snap the ball. Tight end stops and he'll turn back around. He'll block out, right? He'll block like a 3 technique, and they'll run right underneath that. It's just new concepts that are being consistently designed by great offensive coaches out there. And the Raiders have Luke Getsy, right? And to me, the difference between great teams and bad teams is coaching. Quarterback literally does not matter. You can win games with Gardner Minshew. You can win games with Aiden O'Connell. You can win games with Andy Dalton, right? Your quarterback does not matter. Sam Darnold's 3-0 this year. Kyle Shanahan took Jimmy Garoppolo to the Super Bowl. He replaced him with a 7th-round pick, and now that 7th-round pick took his team to the Super Bowl, right? Kyle Shanahan ultimately got a 7th-round pick to take his team to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy's not even that good. Tua Tagovailoa was written off as a bust, right? In his first 2 years, he was terrible, right? The head coach at that time, Brian Flores, was like, hey, I can't work with this guy. He's like one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever coached. And Mike McDaniel came in year 3, and all of a sudden, Tua Tagovailoa was one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Play calling is where it's at, man. And, you can get around bad offensive line play. You really can, right? The Saints have a bad offensive line as well. But what their coach does, right, Clint Kubiak, who's the offensive coordinator of the Saints, what he does is he doesn't make those offensive linemen have to pass block as much or as long as many times. So coming into this Eagles game, the offensive line of the Saints only pass protected 8 total times coming into this week. I already knew the Saints offensive line's not that good. And against the Eagles made sure that the offensive line was not having success running the football. And that kind of forced the offensive line to have to do a little bit more. And then Jalen Carter just wrecked them, right? Jalen Carter had a phenomenal game today against the Saints. But it's just one of those things where coaching can mask a lot of issues, right? And it's also why the Raiders have been having more success on defense, because our coaching's good, right? Patrick Graham's a good coach. Mark Carbone, shout out to you, said, let's quit saying we may be able to beat a bad team. This team is horrible. Wonder what Mark is thinking about this disgusting effort today. I don't think Mark Davis really cares all that much, to be honest. I don't know if this is 100% Mark Davis, so I'm not saying that, but there's some owners that want to win Super Bowls, and there's some owners that want to sell season tickets. They want to be just good enough that people continuously buy merchandise, that continuously show up to games. They're continuously making money in that aspect of things. And I don't know which one Mark Davis is. To me, I think he's an owner that would rather make money from the franchise than actually see a successful franchise. And I know that people are going to say that's weird to kind of think about it that way, but this is a fact. Some owners care more about making money than they do about actually winning Super Bowls. It's why Dak Prescott is continuously getting signed. It's why Derek Carr is continuously getting signed. It's why, Kirk Cousins is getting signed. Those quarterbacks aren't that good. None of those quarterbacks never won a Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen. But, at the end of the day, like, it's just, it's sales tickets, right? You'd rather go in and see those guys, and there's more hope with those guys than there is with the rookie quarterback that, it's 25% chance it's going to even work out, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's just unfortunate, man. I do think the Raiders are a good team, though. I do think this team is a lot better than the team last year, but I do think from a coaching standpoint, like, I don't know if Luke Getsy's a better offensive coordinator than Josh McDaniels. I really don't know that, right? I really, really don't know if Luke Getsy's better than Josh McDaniels. He might not be, to be 100% honest. Damian Weaver said, is this the worst run game you've seen? Absolutely. I have never seen the Las Vegas Raiders worse. We've had more success with like Lamont Jordan, and Lamont Jordan might actually be better than Zamir White. No disrespect to him, but like there's been moments like Justin Fargas, right? Like Justin Fargas, I don't even know how long, it was like 15 years ago. The guy was the most unathletic running back I'd ever seen, but he had success because of the fact that the run game design was legit, right? The offensive coordinator put a good design in, right? I don't think the Justin Fargas and Hugh Jackson years overlapped. I don't think those years overlapped. But even Hugh Jackson had a great run game, right, with the Raiders. This is definitely the worst run game I've seen for sure. And the thing is like you can predict which teams are going to be good. Last year, a lot of people were saying coming in, Luke Getsy had the #1 rushing attack in the NFL. I had said this last year, or when people were saying that, I said, look, Justin Fields runs with the football. You can't consider that part of the run game, right? When you only factor in the actual running back numbers, the Bears ranked that thing like 15th or 16th in success, right? Running the football, right? But you can pretty much know coming into this season, like the Niners are going to have a great run game. The Dolphins will have a great run game. The Rams, the Packers, those teams will have a good run games. The Lions, great run game. The Eagles, right? You know, just coming into the season, which teams will have success and which teams won't. And I feel like Luke Getsy, I just had a feeling he wasn't going to be able to put it together. And then the fact that they didn't really fix the offensive line and they didn't really fix the running back position, I'm not surprised that our run game's really, really bad. I actually feel bad for the people that were like, we're going to take Zamir White in like the top 3 or 4 rounds in fantasy football, right? Rob Lockhart says, damn, YouTube is greedy with all these ads during the live. It's crazy because there's a button for me that just lets me turn it on, and then YouTube basically just picks the ads. I'll see if I can turn that off so it's a little bit easier going forward. Murph Dizzle said, Kubiak's offense is legit. We are rolling with quarterbacks and offensive coordinators we don't really want. I'm tired of getting leftovers. Pay up. And that's a fact, man. There was a video that I actually had made. This was sometime in January. The Raiders actually, and I didn't even notice it, or I didn't remember until I re-looked into it. The Raiders actually requested an interview for Klint Kubiak. And I'm not sure how far that process went, if the Raiders actually brought him in and if they actually interviewed him. I don't know how much further it went down essentially that line, but the Raiders wanted Klint Kubiak. And the Saints did struggle today on the offensive side against the Eagles, but also keep in mind the Eagles have a great defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. Fangio always designs great schemes. So he designed a great scheme to be able to shut down the Klint Kubiak system. But I can guarantee you guys the Saints are going to bounce back, and the Saints will have a lot of success down the line. And that's because of their offensive coordinator, Klint Kubiak. I'm not sure if Antonio Pierce can be the Raiders coach going into next year, right? He has, how many ever games are left, right? I think it's like 14 games left. He has 14 games left to essentially prove himself. And if Antonio Pierce does not prove himself, then the Raiders are going to have to look to get a different coach. And, maybe Bobby Slowick's going to be the coach that can come to the Raiders to save us. But I think Bobby Slowick also is going to get to decide which team he wants to go to. Klint Kubiak may not become a head coach this cycle. Samuel Ben Johnson, he might get to ultimately choose. I don't think those guys are going to choose the Raiders, to be honest. I don't know what would make them feel like, hey, I want to go to the Raiders. Like, we don't have a quarterback technically, unless those quarterbacks or those guys think Gardner Minshew can win, right? I don't know. Koljit T, shout out to my older brother, said, crazy, I called this letdown. Dog was confident that we could win. It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. I think a lot of people had a feeling coming into this game, because I was saying the same thing, that I wasn't very confident coming into this week. And I know a lot of people were commenting the same thing. It's a trap game. I'm not confident in the Raiders to actually come out and win this game. A lot of people were saying that. And there's a reason why we're all saying that, right? This is literally the reason why. Andy Dalton, 26 to 37, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. I had seen a tweet from one of the Raiders beat writers. I don't know exactly which one it was, but the guy put it out there. He was saying that, hey, Patrick Graham just told us, beat writers, that don't sleep on the Carolina Panthers. And then right after that, he wrote, but none of us are buying that, right? Essentially saying that we know he's just saying that to say that. The Raiders are going to essentially whoop the Panthers, and it's crazy because it ended up not happening. The Raiders got their ass kicked, But is any given week in the NFL, right? Any given week in the NFL, Duck Squad or Duck Quad said same O-line and played better with Aiden O'Connell last year. That's debatable, man. I think last year the Raiders definitely had more success with the Aiden O'Connell, but I think that wasn't because of Aiden O'Connell. I think that was more so because of our defense. Our defense was a lot better last year. And I don't know what the difference is, honestly. Maybe some team out there has figured out that, hey, this could be a weakness in the Raiders defense. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe we're more confident last year, but our defense should theoretically be better this year. Maybe it's the fact that Malcolm Koonce is out for the year, right? We got that update as well. I didn't make a video on it. I'll probably talk about it in tomorrow's video. But Malcolm Koonce is out for the year, according to Jordan Schultz. And I actually reached out to Schultz myself, and I asked him, I DM'd him on Twitter, and I asked him, I said, are you sure that Malcolm Koonce is out for the year? Because I don't know which athletic guy. I think it was Tashawn Reed or may have been Vic Taver. One of those guys posted that it's only like a 4 or 5 week injury. Malcolm Koonce's injury is not end of the year, or he's not going to miss the rest of the year. And Jordan Schultz is like, hey, I'm 100% positive that he's out for the year. So, Malcolm Koonce is out as well. And maybe that's the difference, right? Maybe it's we don't have that good of a pass rush at this point. I do think both Maxx and Christian Wilkins are really legit. And keep in mind, I think the Panthers have a top 10 offensive line. I think the Chargers have a top 10 offensive line. The Ravens probably wouldn't say they're top 10, but they're probably like top 20-ish. And I think Lamar Jackson makes them a lot better as well, because it's hard to get to Jackson. We played 3 really good offensive lines up to this point, right? The Cleveland Browns, I think their offensive line may not be as good this year as it was in the past. So maybe we have a big game against the Cleveland Browns, right? I know some people are going to say, hey, start Aiden O'Connell. He went 9 of 12, 82 yards and a touchdown. The thing is Aiden O'Connell, he took a sack, right? And we all kind of saw that. The Panthers weren't playing like, hey, we're going to blitz him and we're going to come up with this scheme and this and that. The Panthers were like, hey, let's just get home healthy. All right, let's sit back. Let's make the tackle. Let's waste this clock. Let's get out of here healthy. And the Panthers were not trying at the point that Aiden O'Connell came into the football game. Aiden O'Connell also got sacked. He played one drive. In that drive, he ended up getting sacked. What happens when Myles Garrett's coming at him, or Maurice Hurst, or whoever else the Cleveland Browns have? What happens when those guys are coming full speed at Aiden O'Connell? I would hesitate with Aiden O'Connell at this point. Now, if Gardner Minshew continues to struggle, then I think by like week 6 or 7, we have to consider making that switch. Mystic said AOC needs to start. Minshew is a deer in the headlights. I don't personally agree with that. There were moments even in today's game where Gardner Minshew was able to push the ball downfield. He had moments where things actually looked good at specific times. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to say, but I actually just saw a comment here that I kind of want to talk about. Rax, shout out to you. So did you hear what Antonio Pierce just said about players making business decisions and the staff is going to make business decisions? I did not hear that. I have not seen the presser yet. I went live basically right after this game, but I'm not surprised to hear this, man. It could be regarding Jackson Powers Johnson potentially, right? I'm not sure. I don't want to start rumors. I don't want to put anything out there. Maybe it's regarding him. Maybe there's something with Devante Adams. Maybe it's someone else. I don't know, right, at the end of the day. But I'm going to watch that presser, and then I'll probably talk about it either today. I probably won't talk about it today. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But I will definitely check that out, and I will let you guys know. And we will also be making a video tomorrow. We'll talk about kind of what happened with the Raiders. The defense obviously did struggle. You can't give up 36 points and think that the Raiders are going to win. I know our offense was really bad, but we also knew coming in, you have Maxx Crosby making $30 million. You have Christian Wilkins making like $28 million. If you have that type of money invested on the defense has to step up and they have to carry you a little bit. We also knew coming in, our quarterback, one's a second-year player, and the other one is making like, 10, 11, 12 million, whatever Gardner Minshew's making. He might be making 15. But, we knew coming into this season it was going to be the defense having to carry us. You can't give up 36 points. And I know 3 of those 6, but 36 was based off of the turnover. Minshew threw an interception. But 36, 33, there's still a lot of points to give up. Defense has to play better. Offense has to score more, right? They got to make it so that the defense actually wants to be out there and feel comfortable. A 10 commandment, shout out to you, said Dalton hit his first read. Our defense did not make him run through his progressions to allow the D-line to apply pressure. Panthers play calling was outstanding, but 100% agree. The Carolina Panthers did this the first 2 weeks. When I watched their tape, they would isolate the best pass rusher and they would chip that pass rusher. They would double team that pass rusher. They threw screens to that pass rusher side. Like they did everything to make that pass rusher feel like, you're not going to get going. And the Panthers did that to Maxx Crosby. And that's why Maxx Crosby really didn't do much today. Now, he was hurt. Some people said that he had the ankle injury or whatever. And maybe that's why Maxx Crosby didn't have a great game today. Maybe Dalton was just getting the ball out super quick and that was their game plan, right? Maybe the Raiders should have made some more adjustments on the defensive side. Maybe our cornerbacks aren't as good as what we thought. Someone told me they felt the guy that I spoke to this offseason was like, hey, I think Jordan Bennett's going to be really, really good. I think he's going to be better than Jack Jones. And here's the thing. He probably, Jordan Bennett might actually be better than Jack Jones. Jack Jones literally might not actually even be that good, right? I think I might have been a lot more, I might have thought a lot higher of Jack Jones than he actually is. The guy's given up like 3 touchdowns already this season, and I don't think he has an interception yet, right? I don't even think he has like he might have 1 pass breakup. He actually got his hands on the football in today's game too, but I need to see more from Jack Jones, right? Defense as a whole just has to play a lot better, Shout out to you for the super chat. Always appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Casey said, you think Getsy gets fired? Shorter passes needed. I think I don't think Luke Getsy is gonna get fired today. I don't think it's the right time to fire any coaches, right? 3 games in the season is not a long enough period. Remember, we have 4 months of football left. 4 more months of the Raiders potentially getting their ass kicked and us fans being tortured. Or maybe it's 4 months of winning. We'll see what ends up happening, right? But there's still a lot of football left. And I don't think it makes sense to fire Luke Getsy today. Usually, right, at least historically speaking, anytime you fire your coaches, chances are it's downhill from that point, right? And maybe you have a small boost, and maybe that's down the line when that happens, right? Let's give it 5-6 more games. Luke Getsy is not a good coach, man. I could have told you guys that. And one of the things that really sucks is like, I could have told Tom Telesco not to extend Andre James. And if he listened to me, he would have made the right choice because Andre James sucks. I could have told you guys that Luke Getsy is not a good coach. And if Mark Davis or whoever hired Luke Getsy listened to me, we would have been in a better spot, right? The thing is, there's so many like common sense decisions that if the Raiders just make, we're better off, right? And I don't know why we struggle doing that, right? Tyree Wilson over Jalen Carter, I will never get over that. That's just as bad as taking Alex Leatherwood over Christian Darrisaw. Our Christian Darrisaw is one of the highest paid tackles now because he's one of the best tackles. Alex Leatherwood's a practice squad player for the Chargers. Tyree Wilson will be a practice squad player for some team probably in 5 years, right? Unless he really gets it together. In fact, did anyone notice Tyree Wilson out there? I'm pretty sure he was active and he was supposed to play today, but I didn't see anything from Tyree, right? It's unfortunate. It's really, really, really unfortunate. J-Man said, explain the Minshew benching, starting team state. So I actually think, and I thought about it, so I put a tweet out saying, and I talked about this in the beginning of this live video. So Gardner Minshew got benched, right? Or, they made that switch at quarterback right after he threw that interception. Now, I said that the quarterback threw a curl route, right? He expected Devante Adams to run 10 yards and then turn towards the inside. And then Devante Adams ran 10 yards and Devante turned to the outside, right? So Devante Adams ran an out route while Gardner Minshew threw a curl route. So Gardner Minshew threw an interception because Adams ran out, Minshew threw in. So to me, Gardner Minshew getting benched tells me that Minshew was the one that made the mistake on that. Right? Gardner Minshew thought Devante Adams was going to run a route towards the inside, and he threw it, and Adams ran outside, and it led to an interception. And then Aiden O'Connell came in on the next drive. So to me, that tells me that that play had to have been on Gardner Minshew. But regardless of that, Gardner Minshew making the wrong pass is one thing. But then it's another thing. Okay, well, what about the other plays where Brock Bowers runs into another guy, right? You get Zamir Wright running an outside, or Zamir Wright is running a outside zone, and Gardner Minshew thinks he's running a wide zone, and the handoff exchanges off. There's plays this season, spacing, right? I also see spacing issues with the Raiders pass game. I do think if the Raiders make that switch to Aiden O'Connell, which if Gardner Minshew struggles, for 2 to 4 more weeks, you make that change. But if Aiden O'Connell continues to struggle, what do you do at that point? Then do you fire Luke Getsy, and then do you go back to Gardner Minshew? Like, what do you do at that point? Because once you make the change from Gardner to Aiden, your season's almost over at that point, right? You're like at the end of the season, right? It's just one of those things where you really got to figure out what the Raiders' real issue is, right? And essentially try to correct that. Now, I'll be the first to tell you guys, I think if the Raiders fixed their offensive line issues, their inability to run the football, I think if the Raiders start right then and there, I think that's going to make you a lot better as a football team. So if the Raiders go out there and say, hey, we're going to put in, we're going to go out there, we're going to put in at left guard Jackson Powers Johnson. We're going to move Dylan Parham to center because I think Dylan Parham's actually been legit. And then we put in whoever at right guard, right? Maybe it's Thayer Munford goes to right guard, and then DJ Glaze starts at right tackle, or maybe it's Andres Pete at right guard with Munford at tackle, or maybe it's DJ Glaze. To me, that offensive line's better, right? On the interior, you're already a lot better. So you are going to have more success running the football when Powers Johnson and Pete and Parham, right? When your best offensive lineman out there, or maybe you go sign Phil Haynes, right? Phil Haynes is available. Maybe you call the Bears. Maybe they're ready to trade Tevin Jenkins, right? Make something happen where your offensive line can actually have success as you go forward, right? Because right now our offensive line is not having success, right? If they're having success, let's say you throw the ball 30 times in a game, they might have success 26 times, but those 4 times will be like on 3rd and 8, and that'll just ruin the drive like that, right? Or it'll be on a key 4th and 1, and we won't be able to pick that up, right? To me, the Raiders can start fixing their issues right now by addressing the offensive line first. And, I also think they can make some personnel changes. I think, let's not play Michael Mayer as much. Right? Mayer can essentially play 8 snaps a game because I don't think Mayer's that good of a playmaker. I think Brock Bowers should start 100% of the time. I think you should put Trey Tucker in a lot more. Right? Let Trey Tucker play more than Jacoby Myers because Trey Tucker gives you that potential of speed. Right? He can run downfield and you can throw it deep to him. If we're going to keep Devante Adams out there as much as we do, let's throw him the ball deep. Let's give him more opportunities to throw the ball. And we should be a passing team first and foremost. We should not say we're a run-first team because we can't run the football. The Raiders started this game on first and second down. They ran the ball on first and second down. They picked up like 4 yards. Third down was incomplete. They punted the ball. That was how we started the first drive of the game. On the second drive, we ran the ball on first and second down. We picked up 3 yards again. And then we got lucky that Gardner Minshew was able to pick the first down up on that drive. The first drive of half, we went 3 and out. We ran the ball on the first and second down of the first drive of the second half as well, right? To me, the Raiders are way too predictable, right? We're not a run-first team. Why are we running the football on first and second down? To me, the Raiders got to throw the ball more. They got to spread it out, right? They got to allow their quarterback to be able to make we got to have success through the pass and then run off of that, right? Not try having success on the run and then try to pass off the run game because we're not having success playing that style of football. Byron Caldwell, shout out to you, said, has Andre James got to push this season? He has. It's been backwards, right? He has gotten a push and it's been backwards. And the Raiders got to fix that position as well. And it's unfortunate that the Raiders signed Andre James because he's basically under contract for 2 years. Doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what Tom Telesco was thinking. I'm not sure if Tom Telesco really felt that, hey, I don't want to come in and have to replace 4 different positions, or, let's just bring back Andre James and we'll replace the other ones. And that too, okay, we need to replace the left guard spot. They replaced it with a horrible left guard, right? They decided to go with Cody Whitehair, and that didn't make sense to me either because he's not very good. Right. It's just all unfortunate at the moment, man. We really got to get things fixed at this point, right? Fuku War, shout out to you, said, can you can see real-time Getsy and AP aren't good coaches. Yet again, and fans and YouTube creators are better at this than them. It's a fact, man. Like a lot of us fans, right? And I'm always on a Twitter. I'm always live tweeting, and I always read you guys' comments, even on my non-live. I'm not on Twitter, but like my YouTube videos that I post. I'm always seeing your guys' comments, and we all see it, right? Like most of us agree with the same shit, right? Which is Luke Getsy's not a good coach. Even Antonio Pierce is not a good coach, right? He's average. He's an average coach. Some people, he might be able to fire up, like Maxx Crosby might like Antonio Pierce. Some other guys might like him, but he doesn't bring you anything. When you think about Kyle Shanahan as a head coach, Kyle Shanahan calls offensive plays. And he's one of the best offensive play designers. When you think about Sean McVay calls plays. He's one of the best play caller in the NFL. Matt LaFleur is a head coach, but he's a play caller. He calls some of the best plays. The best play callers in the NFL run the NFL right now. Ben Johnson is one of the best play callers. He's an offensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. So the Lions are going to lose Ben Johnson after this year. The Houston Texans have a great play caller as well in Bobby Slowick. They're going to lose him as well after this year. The New Orleans Saints have a great play caller who's not a head coach, and Clint Kubiak. They're going to lose him as well. So there are guys out there that the Raiders can actually target after this year. But Mark Davis has to be able to hire in the right year. Right, when Kyle Shanahan was coming out, when Sean McVay was coming out, the Raiders didn't need a head coach in those years. Right, we happened to just hire a guy, or we're 2 years with one guy, or whatever it was. But we need to hire a coach in the exact moment that a great coach is coming out. If the 49ers keep Kyle Shanahan as their head coach for the next 20 years, they will be a Super Bowl contender for the next 20 years. Right, that's just a fact. Right, Kyle Shanahan's a great coach, and it's like that even with Andy Reid. It's like that, right? We saw that with Bill Belichick for years. To me, you got to find a great coach, right? And that's just what it comes down to. As my good friend here says, AP is not an X's and O's guy. He said it himself. We hire OCs and DCs to do that. That's a fact. It's 100% fact. The unfortunate thing is, if we find the best play caller in the NFL next year, he'll be here for 1 or 2 years before he leaves, right? And then you're back to Luke Getsy again, right? Josh Allen had a great, he had a great start. I think after like his second or third year, he had a really good offense coordinator. Things were rolling, and his offensive coordinator takes a job with another team, and he struggles for 2 years, right? I mean, he was still good. He's really good, but it wasn't the same. And you have examples like that across the NFL, right? I don't know who the Falcons coach was at this quarter. I think it was Matt Ryan was with the Falcons at the time. When Kyle Shanahan helped take them to the Super Bowl, he left, and then Dan Quinn gets fired, right? There's examples of that across the NFL, and we need to find a good X's and O's guy that can really get it done. Andre Houston said, we should get Bo Hardegre back. This is awful. I don't know if I agree with you on that one, man. That would be that. Not saying he can't be good one day down the line, but he'd have to be able to install his own offense. There's a lot of different elements to it. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, we're going to hire this guy because this guy's had success calling plays. That guy has to prove that he can install an offense as well. The Falcons have this guy named Zach Robinson that they just hired. Zach Robinson was with Sean McVay. He was their pass game coordinator. He's now the offensive coordinator of the Falcons. He's running the entire Falcons offense, and he hasn't really installed the offense that well, or at least it doesn't look like that up to this point. So it's one thing to call plays, another thing to be able to install the plays. Make sure guys know what they have to do, the blocking angles with the offensive line, the coaching points. You got to make sure everything's spot on, So it's a lot more than just a guy's a good play caller too, right? Paul Guenther was a really good play caller with the Bengals, but Paul Guenther never installed that defense, right? Someone else installed the defense. Paul Guenther just took over a defense that was already installed. And he just called the same plays. And when he had to, install a defense with the Raiders, he just confused everybody. Everyone's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Frozen Raider said all the money left needs to be on the O-line. It's the worst problem we have by far. The thing with the money aspect with the Raiders right now is you have to decide, are you going to pay Malcolm Koonce, or are you going to pay Trayvon Merrick, or are you going to pay Devon Diablo, Robert Spillane, or are you going to go sign a free agent offensive lineman or go trade for one of those guys? Right, because the Raiders don't have an unlimited amount of money, right? I think cap-wise, we have like $30 million for this year, which will carry into next year. And then, outside of that, we'll probably get another $20 million next year, right? And as the cap kind of goes up, that's all you'll have then. You got to use that to essentially bring your own guys back as well. Now, maybe you move off of Devante Adams. Maybe if the Raiders choose to go down that route to save that money, that could make sense. It's just something you got to figure out, right? And that's going to be on Tom Telesco to figure it out. Something tells me Tom Telesco is going to be here for a really, really long time with the Raiders. I do think he'll be able to have success as a general manager. I do think Tom Telesco is a good general manager, but it's going to take time. And for us, it sucks because we're all getting older, right? All of us are 1 year older. I don't want to wait 5 years for a Raiders to get to the point where they have it's a rookie quarterback in like year 2 or 3. Right? I don't want to wait 5 years for that to happen, right? But unfortunately, that might be what the Raiders end up doing. Julio says Jordan Merritt at left guard, Jack Sparrows Johnson at center, and Glaze at right tackle. Shoot, even Will Putnam is a better center than James. Yeah, Andre James is bad, man. He's a bad football player. And, I was a big Andre James fan. Some of you guys know this, right? Back in 2018, 2019, when Andre James came to the Raiders, I was a huge fan of him, right? In the preseason, I was like, hey, this guy has some upside. And I remember talking to Colton Miller in a video that I had done, right? And I remember Colton Miller, I asked him about Andre James because they were college teammates at UCLA. And he was like, hey, I think Andre James can be able to start one day. And then like a year and a half later, he ended up starting for the Raiders, right? We traded Rodney Hudson. And I was a big fan of Andre James at one point, right? He was getting better and better and better. He looked good his first year he started, the second year, and then year 3 came and it just kind of started going downhill a little bit. He never really continued to develop. He never really got that much better. And that's one of the things I've learned with offensive line. I scout, right? I do scouting for the Hula Bowl. I do scouting for the NFL draft. I've been doing that for a number of years. And some of you guys know that O-line, D-line is what I'm always looking at. And I always see guys that come into the NFL or guys in college who are like freshmen or second-year guys, and they look great. but they never develop, they never get better, and instead they kind of just stay where they're at. It's kind of like that Cody Whitehair effect. Right, Cody Whitehair was a great player in his first 3 years, but he never got better. Right, and if you don't get better, everybody else around you is getting better. Right, so the best players step up, while some guys just kind of stay average. And with Andre James, he kind of just stayed at that same point. And it's crazy because some people were calling Andre James a top 5 center coming into this year. Like, people were literally calling Andre James that. And it's always crazy to me how some people think the craziest things with Raiders players, right? And I'll be the first to say, I love the Raiders, but I never try to be biased, right? 172 Getsy final super chat, and we're gonna end the video here saying, where has Telesco ever been successful? He's ass at building in the trenches. The Chargers have one of the best offensive lines, so I'm not sure if I 100% agree with you on that. Tom Telesco's only been a general manager for 1 year, right? With one team, right, which was the Los Angeles Chargers. Also, I think sometimes people aren't realistic either, right? People fail to forget. You know, when you become a scout in the NFL, you're usually a scout for 3 years. You never get a job in the NFL again. If you become a general manager in the NFL, you usually get one shot. If it doesn't work, you're never a general manager again, right? People don't realize for every successful general manager, there's 100 that never get another opportunity. Mike Mayock will never get another opportunity. Reggie McKenzie will probably never get another opportunity. Tom Telesco did a good enough job with the Chargers that he had legit interest the second time, after the Chargers moved off of him, the second time he was looking for a job, he had interest because the NFL obviously thought he was a good general manager. The Chargers have a great offensive line, right? They have a great left tackle. They have a really good left guard. They had, for the longest time, a great center in Corey Linsley, who ended up retiring, I think, last year. The Chargers have a good offensive line this year. They have Joey Bosa. They have Mack. Those are people that he essentially brought over there. Tom Telesco is a good general manager. I think it's unfair to say Tom Telesco is not a good general manager. When the guy was a general manager for 10 years, he gets fired, and then he's a general manager the next year, right? He gets hired again. There's not a lot of general managers that specifically happens to. Sanjit, can Andre James be a guard? I think he can. I think it's possible. Guard's obviously easier than being a center. But is he strong enough? Is he strong enough? I know the wasted movement when you have to snap the football, he won't have to do that, but it's still hard nonetheless, right? It's not easy to be able to still snap the football. Or I'm sorry, not snap the football, but still have like that power to get underneath guys, put leverage, and be able to move people. I'm not 100% sure. I would not cut Andre James right now, though. At the very, very worst, Andre James becomes the Las Vegas Raiders backup center until his contract allows us to kind of get out of that, right? So let me know what you guys think, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I said this last week. I'll say it again. If you guys need to either watch the replay of the game, of this past game, I have a website for that. If you guys want to watch the game live, because you guys might not get it live because for some reason they don't have the game here in Northern California, DM me on either Instagram or Twitter, and I'll send you guys those links so you guys can watch it yourselves. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time with another video.